You have entered the portal of pro wrestling, and this is your AEW All Out predictions. So it's either going to be tonight or tomorrow, depending on what time this video is dropped. I'm hoping that it drops Friday night, but it might come out Saturday. So in that case, just know that September the 7th, Saturday, whenever you're watching this, All Out is either going on or is coming up. We'll just leave it at that. Now, the AEW pay-per-views have been increasing every year since they've been in existence in their 5-year history. It used to be that there was only a small amount of pay-per-views, and I really liked that. It allowed for all programs, feuds, and matches to kind of breathe a little bit. They have increased the amount of pay-per-views that they're doing. I don't see that as a problem. I just see that as the way of the world. It's really hard to do what happened in the 90s and the 80s in 2024 successfully. So not hating them on that. I do like that they're not doing 12, that is seemingly they're doing 10, and I don't know if they're going to add an 11th next year, but I just like that they're doing 10. I think the WWE is doing something like that. I think sometimes they have 2 PLEs within the same month or something. If I'm off the top of my head, I'm not sure exactly if that's true, but so give or take, they're doing 10, maybe 11, but I do like that because it gives adequate spacing. It's not an overkill, and then it makes the PLEs or PPVs that happen mean more. And AEW's All Out, I believe this might be the last year that they have it in such close proximity to All In. Stretch that sucker out, man. If you're listening, TK, stretch it out. I'm not against the idea of just giving us a 3-4 week window, but I do like what TK did. He seemingly did a really good job of building to All In and All Out simultaneously. I like that he did that. I thought that was pretty well crafted, so that it didn't take much in that 2 weeks to give us a reason to be invested in All In. So let's take a look at the card. For the TBS Championship, Mercedes Moné defends against Hikaru Shida. Now, Hikaru Shida had a particularly big smile on her face this past Wednesday on AEW Dynamite when she found out that via Christopher Daniels that Camille is barred from ringside. That gives her a leg up in the match, gives her a little bit of a advantage going in, but I will tell you one thing, they're not going to let Mercedes Moné have a short title reign. Her TBS Championship reign will continue. I have her winning this match. I think it's fine. I would have liked to see Thunder Rosa against Mercedes Moné personally. She was in the match to contend for a shot at the championship, and she wasn't victorious. I believe she still is feuding with Deonna Purrazzo, but I personally would have liked to see Thunder Rosa and Mercedes Moné. I think they're probably saving that match for somewhere down the line. I think it's got huge implications. It's a huge type of a match, so I would say that they're saving that for something of a longer build and a bigger story. This is fine for what it's going to be. It is interesting that the TBS Championship is on the line at the pay-per-view, but the AEW Women's World Championship is nowhere to be found. I find that interesting. Mercedes Moné, for all intents and purposes, she should be the AEW Women's World Champion, and the TBS Champion should be Mariah. It's going to be May. But I understand why they couldn't do that, because Toni Storm already had the AEW Women's Championship going into a big program with Mariah. It's going to be May. So Mercedes Moné, she had to fit into the TBS Championship. But the way that they're presenting Moné, they're presenting her as the top women, one of the top women in the division, on top of the division, if I do say so myself, and Mariah, it's going to be May, is now taking a back seat. And I understand that that's also experience as well. Mariah, it's going to be May, is like, she's lacking of that veteran presence, and she's working towards that. I think she's doing a phenomenal job. But with Toni Storm missing, there's really not much for her, and it's evident by Tony Khan even forgetting to do her celebration this Wednesday on Dynamite that she promised she would have done last week on AEW Dynamite. So that's fitting. It seems to me that they're kind of in a stall, maybe like a little stalemate there with her build, and that's why we're not seeing her. She might be on Collision/Rampage tonight, or Friday, sorry. So we may see something of that sorts, because they're probably going to look to stack that live show there. But as far as that goes, she should have been on the pay-per-view as the women's world champion, and she's nowhere to be found. But alas, I have Mercedes Moné winning that match. MJF against Daniel Garcia. This is probably billed as a grudge match. These two have been going back and forth on the mic, seemingly getting more than personal. They've been getting physical. Security cannot hold them back, and it looks like this match is going to explode. Going to probably be all over the place if you ask me. It's going to be a street fight, in my opinion. I don't think it's billed as such, but you can definitely see that these guys have a hatred for each other, and the ring is not going to be able to contain them. That being said, if you look at the build for this match, you would think that Daniel Garcia should take the victory here. That would be the second loss in a row on a pay-per-view for Maxwell Jacob Friedman. So even though go-home math is factored in here, I think that even with AEW, they tend to kind of flip the book on conventional storytelling and what our ideas are of storytelling because of the way that we've been programmed, which I really do think is refreshing and I like. I know I might be one of the only ones that likes that, but I do like that they take you in different directions and give a fresh take on something because it keeps you guessing and it does build interest. And now one could argue whether there's interest or not, but for me, it actually gets me. So I like it. I will say Daniel Garcia should win this match coming back from a horrific injury that he sustained from MJF. But I do see maybe his fury and anger being a distraction and giving way for MJF to get the win. To keep this feud going, Daniel Garcia may have to get darker. He may have to get more cerebral. He may have to get more ugly. And I don't mean physical features. I just mean in his tactics. So I would go with MJF to win this one and then lead into another match and Daniel Garcia to get his comeuppance. My opinion. So, I'm sorry, MJF to get his comeuppance. So I'm going with MJF to win this. In a Chicago street fight for the CMLL World Women's Championship. The CMLL World Women's Championship is on the line, but the AEW World Women's Championship nowhere to be found on the card. Interesting. Willow Nightingale defends against Chris Statlander. I originally had Chris Statlander to win because the mixed tag match that they had at All Out or at All In's pre-show had Willow winning, her team winning. But I just don't know if they're willing to put the CMLL Women's Championship on Chris Statlander. I think Willow Nightingale has inserted herself in the NJPW CMLL relationship very well. So I see her retaining here, getting a measure of revenge. Maybe Chris Statlander attacks to get her heat back after the match, but I am going with Willow Nightingale. For the AEW Continental Championship, it is a four-way match. Kazuchika Okada defends against three other guys. Now, based on the qualifiers that are probably going on as I record this, I am going to say off the top of my head, you're going to see Orange Cassidy, Mark Briscoe, and Konosuke Takeshita involved in that four-way. I don't know if this is happening right now because I believe it is being telecast as I'm recording this and I'm not watching, so I don't know what's going to happen until after I record this video, and then we'll find out. But as of now, that's who I think is going to be in that fatal four-way. I do find that Kazuchika Okada has a shot at retaining here, but he also has a shot at losing. I'm going to go with him retaining here, and then maybe building to a singles match with Konosuke Takeshita, who just came off of the G1 and has a ton of momentum. I hope they don't spoil that momentum for Konosuke Takeshita. He is the Chong Li from Bloodsport of AEW. In a world of Ray Jacksons and not a whole lot of Frank Ducks or Frank Duh from Bloodsport, there is a Chong Li in that division, and that is Konosuke Takeshita. So hopefully they utilize him well and give him that match against Kazuchika Okada later on down the line. But for now, I'm going to go with Kazuchika Okada to win. The Young Bucks defend their AEW Tag Team Championships against Blackpool Combat Club's Claudio Castagnoli and Wheeler Yuta, who are the Trios two-thirds of the Trios division. Did I say that right? Yeah, I think I said that right. of the Trios Championship. So there's going to be a lot of belts in this match. I think the Young Bucks take the win here. I don't think it's like a big surprise that I believe that. Over on Ring of Honor, I think it's Sammy Guevara and Cody Rhodes both have Trios champions and tag champions. I don't know if they're going to mirror that for AEW, so I'm going to go with the Young Bucks retaining here. Maybe we have something from the Grizzled Young Veterans or another tag team shows up. They definitely need something to spike this tag team division up a little bit because it's a little stagnant, if I do say so myself. Young Bucks win that one. For the International Championship, the other half of the Trios champions, Pac, challenges for Will Ospreay's International Championship. I think this is going to be a great match. This is going to be potentially the match of the night here, a show stealer match. These guys are excellent at what they do in the ring. I'm sure they have had plenty of matches before on the independent scene and in the UK throughout. I will say Pac used to be known as the man that gravity forgot. He has seemingly been forgotten as far as his momentum in AEW's singles division, but he has recently had a resurgence, winning the AEW Trios Championships with Claudio Castagnoli and Wheeler Yuta. So I do see, because of that win, because he has a championship, that it seemingly won't hurt him too bad if he loses to Will Ospreay. But with Pac, he's always the bridesmaid, never the bride. So we never saw that he was going to beat Will Ospreay for that International Championship anyways. Still, I believe it's going to be a hell of a match, and it is going to be a show stealer. I got Will Ospreay taking the win there. For the AEW World Championship, Bryan Danielson defends against Jack Perry. Jack Perry is doing his damnedest to be the Raven / Just Incredible of AEW. This outcast, this outlaw who's not afraid of death, who's not afraid to tell it like it T.I. is. I think it's interesting. He's a TNT championship. So once again, another match that's going to have plenty of belts involved in it. I think this is a good dancing partner for Bryan Danielson currently. I don't know if Glass or anything like that is going to be involved. If it is not going to be involved with any of this in the match, then I think it's a safe bet for Bryan Danielson to be in the ring with somebody like Jack Perry. I don't think it's too death-defying or too risky for him. Like I said, as long as they keep it in the ring and they don't do any outside stuff or add any gimmicks to it, I think it should be fine. I think it's going to be, like Scott Keith would say, perfectly acceptable wrestling, and the outcome is going to be Bryan Danielson. He's got a couple of dance partners coming up with Christian Cage and Darby Allin, so we'll see what happens with those matches lined up, and if there's anybody else waiting in line to get a shot at Bryan Danielson. I do like the idea of Bryan Danielson retiring as soon as he loses. It keeps the suspense up for whatever match he has, because you never know. There could be interference. Somebody could call, anything could happen, and in that case, it adds to the suspense that this might be Bryan Danielson's last match, and they have only heightened that by, saying that Bryan Danielson needs neck surgery and all of that. So I think that's really good that they're doing that. It adds a little something to all of his matches, no matter what match it is. So that being said, Bryan Danielson takes the win. And finally, in an unsanctioned steel cage lights out match, Swerve Strickland wrestles Hangman Adam Page. Now, these guys have been committing crimes on one another ever since they started feuding. It's no secret to anybody. It started off with a home invasion, larceny, or arson. They've just been doing all kinds of crazy stuff with one another, stalking, just crazy stuff, right? I think they finally found the positions in this feud, because I've noticed that I didn't know who was likable in this program. Everybody seemed to be flawed, seemed to have some issues, seemed to have some problems, but now it seems like they've switched and shifted and positioned Swerve in the face role for now at least, and Hangman in the heel role. Hangman's still looking for his first win against Swerve Strickland in this feud, but it is unsanctioned. I would assume that because this doesn't count, that he could take this L and it'd be okay, but that would drop him 0 for 4, I believe, against Swerve Strickland. So I don't know how they want to do that or how they want to go about it. I'm going to go with Hangman Adam Page to win this. That would be 2 in a row that Swerve Strickland loses. So they kind of painted themselves into a corner in this buildup with Swerve and MJF respectively. They both have come off of big losses at All In, and they need these wins, but then they put their opponents in positions to where they need to win. Specifically for Daniel Garcia, he needed to win this upcoming match, but I believe he's not. And then for Hangman Adam Page, he needs to win this match because he's 0-3 against Swerve Strickland, and I do believe he's actually going to be victorious. I think he's gotten successfully into the head of Swerve Strickland by blowing up his childhood home. It is going to mess with the focus of Swerve, and that is going to be what ultimately costs him the match. So I'm going with Hangman Adam Page. I think it's going to be a great match. It's funny that he did the unsanctioned steel cage lights out match. It's like a mouthful, and it's like, it reminds me of what I would like try and do, where I would combine gimmick matches in my wrestling simulators from back in the day. It is very interesting. You don't need a cage and a lights out or a non-sanctioned stipulation. You need to get them in the ring and just let them destroy each other. You don't even need a cage, because they're going to definitely leave the cage and they're going to brawl all over the building, and then eventually they're going to find their way back to the cage, and then they're going to bring whatever they found outside of the ring inside of the cage, and then it's going to be, blood everywhere and crazy stuff. And I think Swerve's going to drink blood like Adam did. I don't know, but it's going to be crazy. So it's a wild idea. It's a wild stipulation. But yeah, even the idea of a cage match is kind of like it's not sanctioned. This stuff is not a part of a normal ring. You're adding to this ring with a steel cage, and then you're going to do lights out and then non-sanctioned on top of that. It's just kind of silly to me. But they got to do what they got to do to really, hit home and accentuate the idea that these guys are going to tear into each other, and AEW is not responsible for what they do. And hopefully those ring announcers, those play-by-play guys, hammer that home, because that is their job, to really hammer home and accentuate the idea that these guys really don't like each other, and AEW is really trying to remove themselves from the responsibility of what those guys are going to do in the ring. That really adds to the match. I know it's subtle and I know it's very simple, but it really adds to the build-up, especially when you just are changing the channel and you decide to click on and see wrestling, and you know that they're building up to this big main event at All Out. You want to hear the announcers really hammer home that, hey, we are not responsible for what you see in this match. This is not what AEW condones. See, that's good stuff. Free game right there for you guys. So that's my predictions. That's what I think is going to happen. Those aren't predictions. They're spoilers. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. I know I'm dropping this off really late, so a lot of you guys are probably going to be watching the pay-per-view after or before you watch, or before you come across this video. If you have been listening this long, you guys are real ones, and I really appreciate you. Our community is growing every day, and I couldn't thank you guys more for that. Keep up with the comments, keep growing this channel, keep telling a friend to tell a friend, and as always, I love to hear you guys' opinions as well, so don't hesitate to drop those in the comments. Thumbs up on the way out, you guys. Hit that notification so you know when I'm dropping more videos, and stay tuned for more.